This is the fourth video in a four-part series describing my hometown through a map of consciousness developed by David R. Hawkins in an effort to describe my hometown in a way so that others can use it in a framework and understand the different kinds of people you'll see, the different kinds of interactions you'll have that impact your life, and so that you can eventually find yourself in the right rooms to make it out of the small, rural, poor community. To quickly summarize what we've already discussed, to quickly summarize what we've gone through, and I really encourage you to watch the past videos, but to quickly summarize what we've gone through, we've talked about how I went on long walks in the woods with my family. I had school friends, and I went to a school in the country for the first pre-K until third grade of my educational journey. In this school, we had the Milltown provider. They were the parents of the Friday night local. My parents were more of the modest, asset-rich type with very modest jobs, and we lived far below our means, capitalizing on the fact that my family didn't have a mortgage. We talked about and introduced the levels and how they relate to their emotional states. We applied these levels in my home and social life. Then we went into elementary school in the city. We talked about the bus and how I met survival mode peers for the first time. And then we also talked about gifted courses and how I had the first real mentor in an academic setting. We also introduced these two archetypes, which are very prevalent in my hometown, but people I will discuss less. Then we explained how you are the sum of the five people that you are around mathematically. And then that takes us to middle school, video number 3 of the series, where we introduced a few more characters, the system-trapped adult, and we explained why they're trapped below this 200 level line of consciousness. We then talked about logarithms and how each of these levels in this chart, to go from 20 to 21, is going the same from 10 to 100. It's going from $10 in the bank account to $100 in the bank account. It is not going from 10 to $11. And that is why it's so hard to even go past one of these levels of consciousness, because you're having to go 10 zeros to get to 30. You're having to go 20 zeros to get to 50, and so on. We also talked about gifted class in a linear format and extrapolated this to an exponential number, and we also talked about football in a linear format and extrapolated it to a future exponential number. Additionally, we introduced myself, my own archetype, and we explained how it sits in this average in the green zone. This is good, but it can easily fall into the survival mode when I was having a rough day, and sometimes it even fell even further, as demonstrated by this story. In number 4, in high school, we will build upon all of these concepts, and we will talk about student council, the Thai restaurant I worked at, the Brotherhood mentorship program I was in, and then we'll do a total recap and the end of the era of my hometown, because I left my hometown at 18 years old to go to college and haven't been back for much time since. So first things first, I want to quickly talk about student council, and we're going to use a little bit of the same methodology as in part 3 when talking about football and gifted class. But I want to talk here specifically and introduce some new types of people through this example of student council. So we've got local bosses, one, and we've got J-Town old money. So to introduce first the local boss, this guy's very satisfactory in his work. He's hopeful, but he is a local boss, so sometimes he's got a little bit more pride than he should. He's heavy into the community influence, community politics, local boards, school boards, things like that. And think of trips to St. Simons or Florida, and they really do a good job of running the local economy. These guys, relative to other people, are sitting about here. You know, they do have a little bit of pride, but they very rarely go any further than that down that chain, although I have seen it happen. And they provide something great to the community, so they're easily able to spend a lot of their time in this green zone, in the conscious levels, experiencing optimism, forgiveness. But sometimes this understanding and reverence and love, getting to the spiritual paradigm, isn't quite there. Because at these higher levels, at these levels up here in the spiritual paradigm, you have to understand innately every single level before it and how they all interact with each other. The next type we're introducing is the J-Town Old Money. These guys are meaningful, harmonious. They either work at the local country club or have their own land. They're interested in preserving the family name, managing larger assets, whether that's timber, farming, or real estate, and they're deeply insulated from the town's poverty. In that, sometimes they can dip down, if we look at our chart, in that sometimes they can dip down to these lower levels, but typically they look out at this higher level for all the people below them and really get up to those higher level paradigms. And so now, when we think about the local boss and the J-Town Old Money within the context of student council, we can see that in a student council organization or in organizations where there are not only advisors, which are typically school teachers, that also have a great potential for mentorship, but you bring in local community members that have done great things in the community that are interested in giving back. And so you end up, even if you're a survival mode kind of guy, that your levels here of 1,500, they just get balanced out by the locals, by the country club kids, by the heirs, by the strivers, by the local bosses, and the old money guys, and then the advisors. And when you average all of these together and do 21K over 102, you get 207. And so if you're a survival mode peer, you can get into this environment and be above, on average, the survival threshold. And I just wanted to call attention to that type of environment and why joining school organizations are so impactful for individuals that are below that 200 threshold. And so now I want to introduce a little bit of a small town mom and pop restaurant kind of vibe where the striver / observer, all three of the guys that I graduated with, myself included, there were three of us, we are all doing very well. We all will be in New York City in the next month, and we are all living out great lives, each respectively, and we all made it out of our hometown and are doing phenomenal things for our communities and for the world. And so working in a small town restaurant where those are my coworkers, and then you have local boss types that are really, really great people that understand the dynamics of the community that they grew up in, that have really good average levels, and they want what's best for us as being strivers, observers, even if they're not themselves. And then you have mentors as in bosses. The story that comes to mind most is my boss was an 80-year-old Thai woman, and she was the hardest working person I've ever met. That is where I get my work ethic from to this day. And to be in that environment a few times a week, every single week for the last 2 years of my high school, it is just unparalleled. And it's exemplified here by the average consciousness level in this example. And this is just going to show that if you can find yourself, no matter who you are, around these types of people, around these types of people, around these types of people, the strivers, the local bosses, the mentors, you will make it out. And then the last thing, or the next thing that I want to talk about before we get to number 5. So we've recapped, we talked about student council, we've talked about the Thai restaurant. I really, really want to get into this mentorship program, and it's the gentleman mentorship. There's an individual in my community that's very pivotal to me, and many others. He mentored and brought together all kinds of kids to sit at the same table. And this is the finale, this is the final concept that I'm going to blow your mind with. And the first thing you'll notice here is these are purple. Well, why are they purple? Well, they're purple because let's say you're a survival mode peer, right? What if, just hear me out. What if you're a survival mode kid, you're this guy, and you can start to experience consciousness a little bit over? Let's say you go to school and you work your way up to get just above this survival paradigm, and then you go home back to this as your parent and you sink back down, but you don't go all the way as much as you did yesterday, and you just start here instead. And then you go back up, you're a little bit higher than you were the day before. Just use a different color. You're a little bit higher than you were the day before, and you go back home, and you don't let it get to you. You're here, you're starting here today, you're a little bit higher than you were before, and you go back down, you start here, and you start over, and you're still, if you see what I'm doing here, these survival mode peers, you are not locked into your environment. These individuals, these guys, imagine day after day if they were in healthy environments week after week and they were able to really be around people that are doing incredible things. If these individuals are around people doing incredible things and they can act at a 250 level in this environment, doesn't that change the entire game? If they can figure out how to separate their home life from what they're experiencing in the real world with their peers, with their mentors, with the people that love them in their community, then that can bring their average power level, their average consciousness level up significantly. And what happens when you get that times the Friday Night Local kid, times the Country Club Air, times the Air, times the Striver Observer, and you get all these guys together, and then you have the man mentor, the guy, exhibiting higher levels of mentorship than all the other people that we've discussed thus far as archetypes, and he's operating solidly in this area up here, providing the space through pure love and joy, so that understanding where each of us are coming from and allowing the guys down here to operate up here and creating a space for that environment. That is truly something special. It's beautiful. And so, what we've illustrated here with the numbers is we're saying that these guys who were at 100 each, this should be 1,000 here, is not 1,000, it's 2,500. That is what we're saying. And this creates a higher average. And now we have an average level of individuals where these guys started out, they went home at 100, and they went to a new room with better people that are at higher consciousness levels. And now they have 168 more zeros. 168 more zeros to get to 268 level environment, average consciousness level environment. Wow. Wow. If you're lost in your hometown, if you're trying to get out, this is what I would call you to do. This is the framework. Follow it. It applies. This applies here. Changing where you are applies to all of these examples. This advisor, they're going to be operating higher than that when they're advising their students. This survival mode peer, you don't have to be in survival mode when you're in a safe environment. Pull yourself out of it. Get up to a 250. Get up to a 300. When you're at football, you've got coaches who love you that are challenging you. You're going to war with your boys. Get above that 200 and do it with love. Do it with compassion. Friday Night Local kids, they'll play their asses off with you. You might hate each other 6 days a week, 7 days a week, but for 3, 4, 5 hours on Friday night, you're going to play together, and it's going to be all of you against another team here, and you're going to go to war with each other. In the gifted class, you can ascend to different levels of consciousness, and your advisor will carry you. Gaping the Hometown is all about figuring out what environment you're in, where you're starting, whether it's 1, whether it's 3, whether it's 5, and literally saying, how can I use my feet? How can I raise my hand, ask a question? How can I reach out to somebody and ask them, how do I get to that room with an 8? And immediately add 3 zeros by just being in a different room. That is what escaping a hometown is like, and that is what you have to do to get out of the hometown. So number 1, recognize this 200-line survival paradigm. 2, operate from a higher level of consciousness up here. Forgive your parents, the people that are down there, but simultaneously refuse to join them. And then 3, systematically place yourselves in rooms where this is possible. Just in a room where the mathematical consciousness is higher than your own, and everything else will be taken care of. Thank you so much for watching this 4-part series. It's been a hell of a thought exercise to get all of this out on paper, and this is an homage to David R. Hawkins, who really, really did change a lot of my life with this book. I wish I had found it sooner, although I don't know that I would have understood it. I read it my junior year of college, and it really changed the way that I viewed my past, because I was able to eloquently explain my hometown and figure out, 1, what part of me still existed in this area that needed to die off so that I could operate here and here.